Hi everyone, I'm afraid you don't get to see my lovely face today because we are filming just top down today. So we're going to do a lovely bird in a nest because it is very much nesting and roosting season for our birds over here. So I've done a sort of rough kind of 3/4 of a potato shape for the nest, and then we're going to just find the aperture. We're going to do a yellowhammer in a nest. A yellowhammer is a bird that I have only recently come across and I think is a really cool bird. Bright yellow, very cheerful. So I'm going to have the bird just sitting in there. So I've got the head shape and then the body shape, the head looking over in that direction. So we'll get the beak, get an eye. But today is going to be all about learning about how to create the nest textures. And these nests are always built in within sort of, they almost sort of go through branches. They've sort of built them so they really pad themselves into, like weave themselves into the leaves and the branches on trees. So we're going to have one or two little leaves just coming out. Like that. So that's going to be our bird. Now these brushes look a bit different, don't they? We're just going through a stock transition at the moment in my Etsy shop and on my web shop. These are still Pro Art brushes. These are the Polar 31 Series 31 range. They are equally fantastic to the Pro Art Series 60 range that I use most of the time. And I just wanted to introduce you to them if you are a bit confused when heading into my store, but they're wonderful. Just the same kind of approach, and these are the brushes that I'm selling in the shop at the moment whilst we just get ourselves sorted with a few transitions of stock. So I'm mixing up some sort of warm dusky colours. I've got Moonglow and Burnt Sienna going on here. Moonglow is a great colour, the Daniel Smith colour. It's like an aubergine purple. I've also got some buff titanium here and some yellow ochre. I'm going to get some Payne's grey. Basically, I'm mixing up lots of colours for the nest, and we're going to get those ready. And then the other thing I want to mix up is a nice sort of series of almost like a background of amongst the trees, some nice leafy yellowy greeny colours, because we're going to do a wash in the background first. So I will just get my size 12 Pro Art Connoisseur brush and I am going to paint a bit of a wash around the edge of the nest. I'm not worried about not painting the leaves because they are roughly the same colour, but a lot of our paintings, well, it's all about getting the setting right when you're painting in nature, having things not just floating on the page. So just painting around the edge of the bird, and now I'm going to use water to just splosh a bit on the page to just set the scene for our bird in the trees, and just a few little dashes of sap green. And we're going to let that dry 100%, and then we're going to come back in and paint our bird in the nest. It's amazing how the colours really do fade as they dry. Now I've got a size 4 brush and I'm going to begin building up the colours in my nest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with lighter colours first and use the pointed round brush to create a series of brush strokes, leaving some unpainted space in there, because the Yellowhammer nest is actually quite sort of pale. It's got quite a lot of straw tufty bits in it, and I'm just going to sort of build it up, and not every brush stroke is going to be sort of nicely sort of horizontal and curved. We're going to have a few crisscrossing through, and at this point, this is when I am actually going to start being a bit more mindful of the leaves that we've drawn in. It doesn't matter if your brush strokes sort of go over into the green at this point. I am also going to start bringing in some of my darker colours whilst it's still wet, and you can see what the brilliant thing with the brush is, you can get a lovely fine tip even with the size 4. I think the only difference that is noticeable with these brushes versus the Series 60 ones I normally am working with is that you can see with the white bristles that they start to get sort of coloured as they go through, but actually that happens with the Series 60 brushes that we normally use. It's just you just don't see it because the bristles are tan coloured to start off with, so exactly the same thing is happening. Anyway, so I'm just going to carry on just building up brush strokes whilst the nest is sort of slowly drying, and to gradually this colour, slowly drying. So we're going to get a mixture of some blended bits, some bits that are sort of keeping their shape, and then I'm just going to go round there like that. And we'll build up the nest. Now that that has dried, we're going to start filling in the colours on our bird. So I've got some cadmium yellow here with a size 2 brush, and I'm just going to start filling in a nice basic wash. The Yellowhammer's a beautiful yellow colour. We just want to make sure we're not just painting in a big old block colour of yellow, because cadmium yellow is a strong colour. When painting in birds, I think what is really important is, even with your basic wash, is to try painting your brushstrokes in the general direction that the feathers grow. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of burnt sienna, yellow ochre and a bit of buff titanium, and just start to bring in a little bit of some of the sort of brown feathery markings whilst it's still wet, because we're still in the wash stage. So they're just sort of rising up from there, and then we do get a little bit coming over the head. So we've now got the basic wash in of that. We can now just get on with building up our nest. Now I think the rigger brush is really going to come into its own for the detailed stages of the nest, because it's a wonderfully wiggly and slender bristled brush. So you can see now I'm starting on around the edges using dark mixtures of Moonglow, burnt sienna, Payne's grey. Please excuse Crumble barking in the background if you can hear him. I think he's quite excited today. We film on a day where there's quite a lot of activity in our yard with the neighbours, and he always likes to pass comment on such things. Now you want to probably keep on changing up your colours and your brushes if you feel like you want a bit more control. Maybe go down to a size 0 and, you know, use different thicknesses of brush just to keep things interesting. But essentially what we're doing is we're focusing our darker colours more on the outer edges to give a sense of the rounded shape of the nest. And we're just keeping things sort of nice and light, not going too heavy, and keeping the brush really moving and scribbling, and slowly we build up a lovely nest. And now I'm going to be a bit more careful with the leaves. I'm not going to be going over them because I want them to have a lovely sort of clean line finish. So I'll sort of, there we go, get a little bit of an edge there. Then I can just work that out. Now if you don't have all the colours that I have, do not worry. It's more a case of just being able to look at what I'm painting and look into your palette and go, right, well I've got some browns, I've got some blues. If I mix them together, maybe I'll get something a little bit shadowy, just like what Harriet's using. But you can see slowly as we build this up, we're getting a more rounded shape with a lighter middle. Whilst we wait for that to dry, the nest detail, I'm now focusing my attention back on the bird. So I've mixed up some yellow ochre and cadmium yellow just to make a slightly deeper, stronger yellow. I've got a 2/10 brush and I'm now using that just more concentrated colour to start to create some more detail on the bird. There's going to be quite a few parts where it's not going to be that obvious with this feather detail, but then other bits where we've created our washes nice and dilute, that actually these little lines really are going to show up, and it's a great way of creating a slightly more sophisticated sort of contoured shape for your bird. And there are times where I'm just using some water to just sort of soften the brush strokes a little bit. And then I'm going to take some burnt sienna, just mix it in there a little bit, and then bring in a few more detailed lines. Of that colour too. I've mixed up sap green and some green gold, and now with my size 4 brush I'm painting in the leaves. It's important that the colour is quite strong. Oh, that's a lovely flow, lovely. And just place these in so we've got them established on the nest just with this basic wash colour. And then once those are dried, we can add a bit of detail, a bit of light and shade. I must say I do like how these brushes flow very, very much. There's a really lovely stiffness to the bristles that you get. So if you are in need of some new brushes and you love what I use, but these ones are like, they look a bit different to the ones we normally sell, well, let me tell you, they are basically the same, just for a slight difference. The bristles are white nylon, but they're absolutely fantastic. Okay, we'll let that all just dry and then we can come in and do all the lovely bits of detail. I'm going to use some of my shadowy tones to just fill in the beak. I'm using, it's just the size 0 brush actually. And then the eye we will just fill in initially. Just get some rather dark Payne's grey there. But I'm going to sort of clean my brush off. What I want to do is build it up slowly. So we leave a bit of unpainted shine. So clean my brush off and just build up a little bit of a colour. But yes, that will be filled in once it's dry. Okay, this is the perfect stage to actually have a rub out of your pencil lines, just to get the piece really nice and light and clear before we put in our bits of detail to finish. So the pencil's rubbed out and I've actually just added some sap green details to this leaf here, and I'll do the same over this side. So just started by just helping define the stem there with a bit of more concentrated sap green, but also I want to add in, ooh, Crumble's barking, sorry everyone. There we go. Some extra little leaves just where it comes out there, and in painting those in that quite concentrated sap green, they really stand up nicely. I'm using my size 0 brush and I'm going to now add some concentrated sap green to the top of the leaf there. Then I'm going to clean my brush off and just smooth it onto the leaf, but I'm not going to sort of make it 100% smooth. I quite like the brush strokes there, I think that's cool. And then from the other end, just getting a little bit of water, clean that brush off. And there you go. I'm now using my 2/10 brush to pick out just little areas of shadow from just the brush strokes that we've done before. So I'm just looking for little places where I can add just a little bit more detail or a little bit more sort of darkness in between some of the lighter brush strokes. And that also sort of includes then the sort of hatches where the leaves are growing out from. And this also means we can come up around the side of the bird here. And sort of create that slightly darker internal area of the nest. I've added some yellow ochre into my sort of brown mixes here, and what I want to do is just sort of in behind the nest, I want to sort of set a bit more of a scene and just create this sense that the bird is in a canopy of trees. So I'm using my size 6 brush to quite loosely, just with washes, draw in some branches like that, and then with really dilute green here to place in some leaves that are just going to barely sort of be too noticeable. It's always these last details that really bring a painting to life, and what I'm so pleased about with these last details is they're not actually very detailed, are they? They're big loose elements to the piece. But saying that, this would not be a De Winton Paperco piece if we didn't now go in, zoom in and go in small. Just for the eye and the beak, I've got some Mars Black on just on a size 0 actually. Well, actually no, I might go a bit smaller than that, I think. Don't want to risk it. I've got 2/10. So the beak needs just a little bit more that detail, and then just a sweep across the top as well. And then the eye, to outline the eye. And then I'm going to clean my brush off and draw that colour inwards. I think just a little bit more dark colour on the bottom of the beak is nice. So that's all looking really lovely, and I think what I just want to do is get a bit of shadow. So put a bit of Payne's Grey into my palette there to mix, and then with my size 6 brush I'm just going to come underneath maybe even create a little bit of shadow under in the loose bits. But you can see I'm placing in the shadow with brush strokes that sort of follow along with the textures of the nest. And there we have our Yellowhammer in the nest.